guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about Bulgasal, Immortal Souls, which is a K-drama that just ended. It aired from December 18th to February 6th. So yeah, it just ended a few days ago. It's 16 episodes and it aired on TVN and Netflix, so you can watch it there. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, so this drama had a lot of elements that I was really interested in checking out. It had a supernatural fantasy, it had amnesia, it had a reincarnation, all different tropes that I really enjoy. So I was really excited to check it out, and I enjoyed it. I want to talk about the summary and then what I liked about it, as well as what could have been improved on. Also, there will be minor spoilers for the recap. However, I will be having a section where I have a bunch of unanswered questions regarding the show, and so I will put a timestamp for when that occurs, because those will have major spoilers. So if you want to watch out Bulgasal, then I will put the timestamp so that you won't get spoiled for anything important. Okay, so let's check out the plot synopsis. So I guess it's translated to immortality. It tells the story of Dan Hwal and Min Sang-un. Dan Hwal was a human 600 years ago. While he was carrying out his mission as a military officer to erase the remnants of the former dynasty, he became immortal. He has been immortal for the past 600 years. Min Sang-un used to be immortal. She is now reincarnated into a human being and lives as a human. After she went through a tragic event, she changed her name and identity. She lives in hiding and looks to exact revenge. Ok Ulte is immortal. Unlike Dan Hwal, he enjoys his immortality as well as power and wealth. And in the past, Dan Sol used to be Dan Hwal's wife. She has something special. So they just introduced 4 characters in the summary, and I'm going to get a little bit more into depth about who they are as well as the overall story. So, just to introduce them. This is Dan Hwal. 600 years ago from the present, he was born with the curse of Bulgasal. I know I'm pronouncing this completely wrong. The pronunciation, I have no idea. I keep listening to the sound, but I still managed to get it wrong. Tell me, just listen to this. Bulgasal with a P?
Bulgasal.
But it's spelled with a B, so I'm not sure. Bulgasal. So, I'm sorry. But yes, so he was born with the curse of the Bulgasal, and he is ostracized by his village. His own mother is aware of the curse, and she ends up hanging herself because she doesn't want him to be born, because she's worried that the curse will affect a lot of other people. And then he still ends up being born, and his father abandons him. So he grows up as an orphan, essentially. And I think at 10 years old, he is hunted down by the villagers because a bunch of unfortunate events happen in his village, a bunch of murders, and they blame the Bulgasal curse on him. So they end up trying to hunt him down, and then he gets saved by someone who looks like Min Sang-un, which I'm assuming is, she was a Bulgasal in her past life, so she shows up to save him. And then he's picked up by this war general, who later on, his name is Kwon Ho-yol, Detective Kwon. So essentially, Dan Hwal, at 10 years old, is adopted by Detective Kwon, who is a general in his past life, and ends up marrying Dan Sol, who is his adopted father's daughter. They have 2 kids. One kid, their first kid, who's a son, he's born blind, and Dan Hwal believes it's because of his curse, and that everyone around him meets misfortune because of his curse from the Bulgasal. And then he has a daughter, but she ends up passing away after being born. So he's having marital problems with his wife. She blames him for their broken family. And also he's away at war a lot, so he doesn't spend a lot of time with his family. He's an absent father, essentially. But his reasoning is that he's worried that being too close to his family would put them more in harm's way. And Dan Sol his wife actually has a power. She's actually a psychic, and she can see a soul's past memories. So she also is afraid to touch people, essentially, and she's wary of Dan Hwal, and so pretty much they are just kind of in a marriage, an arranged marriage. I think he does like her, or at least he cares for her on a family level, but I don't know if they like each other romantically. But yeah, so what happened 600 years ago, and this is not really a spoiler because this happens in the first episode. So, Dan Hwal, who's now an adult and is married and wants to cure his son's blindness, he decides to go back to his old village to find and slay the Bulgasal to break the curse. When he gets there, he's not able to find the Bulgasal, but then he's separated from his family, his wife and his son, and they end up being murdered. They end up being drained of blood, and he blames the Bulgasal for it. He thinks the Bulgasal, I'm saying it wrong, aren't I? That the monster was the one that killed his family. And it just happens that the exact place that his wife and son's bodies are is where she shows up, the Bulgasal. So of course he's thinking, you murdered my family. Now what she does actually is stab him with her sword and take his soul, essentially turning him into a Bulgasal and her turning into a human, because Bulgasals are soulless monsters. They are immortal because they don't have a soul. So she takes his soul, and then in a rage, he activates his newly found Bulgasal powers and kills her, and she ends up dying as a human, but reincarnating every few years with her memories of her past life intact. So over the next few centuries, she is reborn as a human with her memories, and he goes and travels the world, well, just Korea really. He just goes around and travels Korea for 600 years trying to find her reincarnation to get his soul back. And then he plans, since he can't kill Bulgasal, he wants to get his soul back and then seal her away in a well so that she can no longer hurt humans. And we jump to the present, so 600 years later, and he meets her, who's now Min Sang-un, and he also finds the reincarnation of his wife, whose name is now Min Seo, and she's actually Min Sang-un's younger sister. And he also finds the reincarnation of his adopted father, who is now Detective Kwon, who works for a detective agency, who has a very interesting obsession with finding Bulgasal for his own purposes. Also, he finds the reincarnation of the shaman from his old village from 600 years ago, and she is now reborn as Mrs. Lee, and pretty much she helps deliver him blood because he refuses to drink human blood. He has to sustain himself, but he refuses to drink from humans. So she works at a butcher shop, and she delivers like animal blood for him to drink. So he's actually not as powerful as he could be because he doesn't feed off humans. And that's why you'll see that he's not as powerful or as strong, or he doesn't heal as fast as he should. And that ends up being a detriment to him later on when there's a threat that appears. Yeah. So just to let you know who the threat is, it's this guy, this dude, Ok Ul-tae. Who is Ok Ul-tae? He is a suspicious fellow. He is the only one out of everyone that's around that seems to know what happened both 600 years ago and even 1,000 years ago. Yes, Ok Ul-tae is another Bulgasal, and he happens to know about Hwal's and Min Sang-un's past, because apparently they have a past together from 1,000 years ago, and he's the only one alive that seems to know what's going on between the two of them. But he is the villain. He is actually hunting Min Sang-un and her sister, he also wants to get Min Sang-eun's soul. But unlike Hwal, who wants the soul back so he can turn back into a human, Ok-ul-tae wants to destroy the soul because he seems to have a problem as a Bulgasal, and in order for him to get rid of this problem, he needs her soul destroyed and her dead. So, that's just a summary of the characters, the main characters, or I don't want to spoil too much, and a little bit of this summary of the show. So now let me jump into the pros I had of the show. Okay, so number one, I thought the plot was really interesting, and I really liked the tropes that were included. So we've got historical, we've got modern day, we've got reincarnation, we've got amnesia, we've got supernatural fantasy with a lot of Korean myths and folklore, and we have found family. And I love found family so much because this is actually a pretty dark and serious show. And so there are some wholesome moments because of this found family trope that's included, especially because he starts to soften a little bit when he finds the reincarnation of his family. Because for the 600 years that he lives, he tries to be really hard-boiled and cold-blooded. He goes around hunting other Korean monsters, and he doesn't try to get close to anyone. And so once he finds the reincarnation of his family, he starts to kind of let down his barriers and be a little bit more vulnerable. So it makes for some wholesome moments. I also think it's really interesting that they focus on a new type of Korean folklore myth, the Bulgasal, instead of the usual gumyo, nine-tailed fox. Often in K-dramas, we'll see the gumyo as like the main Korean monster. We'll see like in Tale of the Nine-Tailed or My Roommate is a Gumyo. It's always that specific monster. And so I think it's really cool that we're being exposed to some more Korean urban legends. And besides Bulgasal, we also get to learn about a lot of other Korean historical monsters because Hwal, as a human 600 years ago, he was tasked with slaughtering all of the different man-eating monsters that lived during the Goryeo period. So they give the little footnotes whenever he encounters a new monster, so you can learn, like there's a monster that gets really powerful in the rain and he has like a big umbrella. There's another monster that hangs people. There's another monster that drowns people, and they have different characteristics and attributes. And besides Ok-ul-tae, who is the main villain in this show, he also does encounter some of the reincarnated monsters in the modern times. So he slaughtered them as monsters 600 years ago, but they were reborn as humans with some of their memories. And so he has to go and hunt them down again because a lot of them turn out to be serial killers as humans. So there's a lot of action. There's a lot of kidnapping. You know, a little frustrating too because sometimes he'll go in circles and then it's like you expect him to do something but he doesn't. So, but I'll talk more about the cons after the pros. So also another pro is that, well, I don't know if it's a pro, but I put it under interesting plot point. I think that the character of Ok-ul-tae is really interesting because I don't understand why he's so obsessed over Dan Hwal. Like at the beginning of the drama, when they first meet, Ok-ul-tae acts like he does not know who Dan Hwal is. He's like, oh, I thought I was the only Bulgasal. I didn't know who you were until you popped up 600 years ago. But then later on as the show progresses, Ok-ul-tae starts to reveal certain information about the past, and he lets slip that he actually knows Dan Hwal's past identity. He knew Dan Hwal from 1,000 years ago, so his previous incarnation before the Dan Hwal that existed 600 years ago. So I was wondering, just what is their relationship? What was their relationship? Were they friends? Were they family? Were they rivals? Like I as I was watching, I was trying to figure out why was Ok-ul-tae so obsessed with Dan Hwal, and why did he want him on his side so bad? You know? So like there's like there's almost kind of like an obsessive, like there's like a one-sided bromance kind of, because Ok Ul-tae really wants Dan Hwal to be his friend, like legitimately he wants him to be his friend. Dan Hwal thinks that Ok Ul-tae is a liar and is a weirdo and cannot be trusted. So yeah, that's if you want to like explore that relationship, it's really prevalent throughout the show. Ok Ul-tae is always being kind of like low-key flirty with Dan Hwal. Dan Hwal is like, I ain't here to play your games. But yeah, there's a low-key one-sided bromance going on in the show. Okay, number 2 is that there is a great chemistry between the main leads, between Dan Hwal and Min Sang-eun. I don't know if you for people who have watched a lot of K-dramas, you may recognize the actor Lee Jin-Wook, who plays Dan Hwal. I've actually seen him in a few other things. I saw him in Goodbye, Mr. Black, where he played a Grim Reaper, and that was a pretty good show. And I also saw him in Sweet Home, and I am just waiting for Netflix to please confirm the renewal of season 2 of Sweet Home. Waiting here, please give us something. But yeah, so I've seen Lee Jin-Wook in dramas before, and I really like him. And I haven't seen Kwon Nara before, but I felt like their chemistry was really believable. So this is like kind of a romance drama, but kind of not, because they never actually end up confessing their love to each other, or there's no hugging, there's no hand holding, there's no typical Korean romance tropes going on between the two of them. And there was no kiss. I was like, every K-drama that has romance has at least one kiss, you know, what during like a pivotal moment, right? They never kiss. And I was really disappointed about that. But even still, without any of those romantic physical gestures, I felt like seeing how their relationship progresses and develops, from him wanting to kill her and get his soul back to him wanting to protect her and make sure that she lives, there is something really romantic about their relationship. She does eventually develop feelings for him and tells him, but for him, who has stayed away from people for 600 years, he cannot understand why she likes him. And he even questions her about it. He thinks that, do you pity me, or is something wrong with your head? Why would you like me? I have been trying to look for you for 600 years, trying to stalk your reincarnations to get my soul back and then seal you away. Why would you have a crush on me? But Min Sang-eun is a very positive person. She has a very optimistic outlook on life, and so she thinks that she believes that he's a good person, that he could have killed her at any time when she was vulnerable, but he chose to protect her and her family instead. And so she thinks he's a great guy, and he's good looking too, so that's like a plus. But yeah, I think their chemistry is really great, and I think that it was almost like, I was disappointed there were no romantic gestures like kisses or hugs, but I feel like they still managed to convey how much they cared about each other despite physical actions of affirmation, you know. Okay, and then also number 3 and 4 is the cinematography and the OSTs. The cinematography is really high quality. All the shots were just really well done. Like, it definitely felt like a lot of work and care was put into the filming of the show. It was just really overall good. I don't know much about cinematography or filming, but I could tell you that it was really nice. And then the OSTs. There are a bunch of dramatic and emotional songs for Bulgasal. I don't know if they released the soundtrack for the show yet, because the show just ended, but you should check out the OSTs. They are really, really good. I can't play them for you here because of copyright reasons, but if you watch the show, I think that the OSTs that they choose are very, what's the word? It's just very fitting, you know? Like, it really gets you revved up when something dramatic's gonna happen, when there's gonna be an action scene, or when he is like letting loose and his Bulgasal powers are flowing through his body. you can tell that like the atmosphere completely changes, and then the OST really helps to pair nicely with the mood of the scenes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those were the pros. What I liked about the show. Now, what are some of the weaknesses or cons that I had? There are two main things. Number one is that the plot ends up dragging a bit too long. And number two is that I have a bunch of unanswered questions that I feel like still have not been answered after finishing the show. And I kind of want closure in those aspects. Like, they're kind of like loopholes, so I just need some explanations, or I wish they provided some more explanations as to why certain things happened or were possible. But but let me talk about the plot, how the plot was a little too draggy. So the main leads tend to go in circles because he finds her, right? And then he keeps stalling. Like, you think that he found her and he was ready to just take his soul back, but then it wasn't like he liked her yet, so I don't know why he chose to really wait so long, like, before trying to reclaim his soul. And then, even though they had the big villain Okulte, they keep getting bombarded with smaller villains that Dan Hwal has to re-slaughter because they pop back up and they're killing humans. And I feel like a lot of the other characters go in circles as well, like the adopted father in his past life, Detective Kwon. He's really gullible, and he just believes whatever anyone tells him. He's not a really great detective, and he is kind of slow on the uptake. Like, everyone pretty much figured out the moment they met Hwal that he was a supernatural being. But however, Detective Kwon, who's been looking for Bulgasal all his life, cannot sense that Hwal is not human. Like, Hwal literally got really badly injured one time, and then he seemed to be pretty healed up soon after, and Detective Kwon just thought that he was just some dude that heals fast, you know? So, like, it just, some things were kind of like, I don't understand what the characters are thinking, you know? But yeah. And then, the reincarnated shaman who ends up later working for Hwal by delivering him blood. I was expecting her to use her shaman powers more because she still has her shaman powers, but it just seemed to be kind of like an added feature. Like, she never really said anything that was really, really important or that really could change the course of time or anything like that. Like, she was just there. Like, she was just a nice ajumma that took care of all of them like a mom, you know? But yeah, I feel like Dan Hwal would have saved a lot of time if he tried to be a little bit more honest with the people that he was with his found family. Like even Min Sang-eun thought it was weird that he cared so much about her younger sister, Seho, but he was really cold toward her. Like, she was wondering, how do you know my sister? Why are you so nice to her? Why, like, because it's very obvious that he's preferential to his former wife and his former adopted father. So she thinks it's kind of weird that he's acting soft towards them, but cold towards her when she's the one that, I mean, she just thinks that he's a good person in general, but I guess he has a soft spot for kids and elderly people. But yeah, so I felt like instead of going straight forward with his plan, he kind of went around in circles, and then he definitely didn't trust Min Sang-eun, but he still let her live in his house, and he was constantly just like side-eyeing her, but like not doing anything, you know? So, I don't know. And then also, something, again, like I said, something important happened 1,000 years ago between Dan Hwal and Min Sang-eun. And they show us like very small snippets because once in a while, Min Sang-eun will have a little bit of a flashback memory, but we don't actually get to see the entire past. The show doesn't the show doesn't show the viewers exactly what happened until the final episode. So, like, literally, the final episode is when we finally find out what their relationship is. So again, when I said the plot was dragging on, they keep teasing things like, oh, was he actually bad? Was she really bad? Or was, you know, like, what was Okulte doing there? You know, like, they decided to just really, like, I enjoyed the show overall, but I felt like there were times when they spent too much time on them just going in circles, and then when we were expecting more flashbacks, like, or historical moments, it's like, nope, we're gonna just tell you all, we're gonna just throw it all to you in the final episode. So in that aspect, it felt a little bit rushed, you know, if that makes sense. I wish that they, I think, evenly distributed the flashbacks more, and that Dan Hwal got to slowly recover his memories, because he has amnesia. He doesn't know what happened 1,000 years ago. He only knows what happened 600 years ago. Min Sang-eun, even though she was supposed to reincarnate as a human every time and keep her memories, she ended up not having her memories this time. And so that's why Dan Hwal is really wary of her, because she's supposed to have her memories. But she doesn't know what happened 600 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago. So, yeah, the plot is a little convoluted. It's like, I feel like they could have cut off a few episodes and still have gotten the job done if they tried to be a little bit more succinct. But overall, I still did enjoy the show as a whole, because I did enjoy the tropes and the chemistry between the actors and the found family. All of them together is so cute. Okay, so the other con that I had, the second con, was about some unanswered questions that I felt were never really addressed or explained in detail or depth. But this is going to involve spoilers, so I'm going to leave a timestamp in the description to let you know that spoilers start now. Okay, you've been warned. So, question 1. What was with Sang-eun's random blackouts and super strength? So, we know that Sang-eun has been reincarnated again as a human. She's been reincarnating multiple times throughout the centuries, but Dan Hwal is never able to find her, because Ok-ul-tae manages to always find her first and kill her. But in this lifetime, Sang-eun manages to... There are actually 2 times where she blacks out, and she seems to almost regain her Bulgasal powers because she's in danger. One time when she's fighting one of the villains from Dan Hwal's past, and another time when she was being stalked by someone. She just blacks out and is able to suddenly wield a knife really well. So I kept thinking, is her Bulgasal powers actually still somehow hidden, dormant inside her? But no, it wasn't. She was still just human. So what's with her blackouts? I feel like they were trying to allude that her powers were still part of her, but then that wasn't the case, because she still was completely human. And so I'm just confused, like, what was going on there? And then question 2 was, why was Sang-eun and Sang-yeon born as twins? So, in every lifetime as a human, she was born as one person. However, in this lifetime, she had a twin sister, essentially. She is Sang-eun, and she had a twin sister named Sang-yeon. Now, Sang-yeon was the sister who retained the memories from 600 and even 1,000 years ago, but she didn't have Dan Hwal's soul. Whereas Sang-eun does not have any of the memories, but she has Dan Hwal's soul. Which means that the 2 of them were split during this incarnation. Now, I wonder why that happened. Why did she split in this lifetime? It made her life a lot more hard, because without the memory, she can't really give Hwal any answers. And minor spoiler, her sister does end up dying, which you'll see early on in the show. Her twin sister ends up dying when they're young, and so she still has the soul, but she just has no memories. And so when she's being tracked down by bad guys and villains who want her soul, she has no idea why. She's like, why am I so unlucky? What's wrong with this soul? So yeah, I want to know, why did they choose to make her born as a twin versus just being one individual person, like always? Let's see. Okay, then I have a bunch of questions about Ok-ul-tae, because I feel like he's still kind of mysterious, and I still am trying to figure out like his thought processes. So number 3 is, why was Ok-Ulte only half a Bulgasal? So whereas Dan Hwal was turned into a full Bulgasal after losing his soul to Sang-un, Ok-Ulte is only half a Bulgasal, but is somehow a lot stronger than Hwal. It doesn't make sense. What? How? Like, I don't understand. Okay, so again, since I said this is spoilers, I'm hoping that you have watched the show already or don't care about spoilers. But to reveal what happened 1,000 years ago, Dan Hwal and Min Sang-un were both Bulgasal 1,000 years ago. They were two halves of a whole. They were essentially a couple that were like soulmates. Min Sang-un, they lived away in the mountains away from civilization, but Min Sang-un ended up taking an interest in humans, and she decided to go and live with humans for a while without telling Hwal where she was going. So later on, her identity as a Bulgasal is revealed, and the human villagers try to kill her because they're scared of her. And Hwal comes to rescue her, but he ends up slaughtering the whole village. And so, because she's angry that he killed all the humans, she tried to kill him and herself. Now, the secret about how a Bulgasal can be killed is that they have to both be struck in the heart at the exact same time. So they share kind of like a life link. They're not immortal because they have no soul, even though they don't have a soul. They're immortal because as long as one lives, the other one can't die. So she stabs herself, and Hwal is really injured. So he ends up finding the human Ok-Ulte, and he transfers his Bulgasal powers to Ok-Ulte, and then Hwal is able to turn into a human and then die and reincarnate 600 years later. So Ok-Ulte actually became a Bulgasal from Hwal. Ok-Ulte was originally a human from 1,000 years ago. But if Hwal transferred his powers to him, why is Ok-Ulte only half a Bulgasal and not a full one? I don't understand. Someone explain. And then to tack on to that, question 4 is, how did Ok-Ulte have a black hole? I didn't understand how that worked. So the main reason why Ok-Ulte is trying to track down Min Sang-un and destroy her soul is because he wants to become a full Bulgasal, but I don't understand how that works. Like, why does he have the black hole? What exactly, is that a curse that Hwal put on him so that he would eventually return the Bulgasal powers? I don't understand why he had a black hole, but Hwal didn't have one, when he was also transferred Bulgasal powers from Min Sang-un 600 years ago. And then, questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm losing track. I have a whole list of questions. 5, also related to Ok-Ulte, is, why was Ok-Ulte so obsessed with Hwal? Because once we see the flashback from 1,000 years ago, which all happens in episode 16, the final episode, we find out that Ok-Ulte and Hwal don't actually even know each other in the past. They were not friends, they were not colleagues, they were not partners, they were not rivals, they were not enemies. Ok-Ulte just happened to witness Hwal murder a village, and Ok-Ulte was like, wow, can I get some of that power? And he decides to help Hwal escape from Sang-un. And that's how Hwal ends up transferring his Bulgasal powers to Ok-Ulte in exchange for his soul. But they weren't really close in any way, and so I don't understand why Ok-Ulte had this obsession and loyalty to Hwal for 1,000 years. And Hwal, like they weren't close. They didn't have a bond or a connection or anything. But Ok-Ulte throughout the show was really jealous of Sang-un and really wanted Hwal to be his friend. And even when they were fighting at the end, he got so jealous and so angry that, like, every time you choose her over me, you're supposed to be mine. Like, yo, when he said that, I was like, are you sure you guys don't have like a little bit of a bromance, or at least a one-sided bromance going on? You know, you seem to be really fixated on Hwal liking you. But yeah, Ok-Ulte does have a bit of a sad backstory because he was born sickly, and spoiler, Detective Kwon was Ok-Ulte's father 1,000 years ago. So they're just switching. They're switching family members back and right, back and forth, right and left. But his father, Okrulte's father, was going to skip him in the line of succession because Okrulte was born weak. And so Okrulte really wanted to get Bulgasal powers to become stronger. And that's why he was obsessed with becoming a Bulgasal, but that doesn't explain why he wanted to be loyal to Hwal. I mean, I guess it's because he had the black hole and he wanted it to be fixed, but I still understand why Hwal gave him a black hole in the first place, that he couldn't just make him a full Bulgasal. If any of you watch the show and know, let me know your thoughts. And then finally, final question is, how did Hwal manage to reincarnate when he didn't have a soul at the end of the show? So, at the very end, he makes a decision to stab himself and Okrulte in the chest at the same time so that they would both die, because he knew that Okrulte is really dangerous and will stop at nothing to hurt everyone that he loves. So, Hwal decides to sacrifice himself and finally die. But because Bulgasals don't have souls, they can't reincarnate. And that's why I don't understand, how did he manage to reincarnate? Because at the very end, after he dies, Sang-un actually also succumbs to her injuries from the fight with Okrulte, and she passes away as well. And then 50 years later, they're both reborn. And they both end up meeting each other again, but as humans. And they don't recognize or remember each other because their memories have been, wiped. But they do feel like a pull or a connection between the two of them. And so the show leaves it open-ended that, like, it's hopeful. They don't remember their past lives or their past incarnation, but they're both now human. So I guess they get a clean slate to start over again. But I understand how Min Sang-un was able to reincarnate because she was still a human with a soul, but Dan Hwal died without a soul. So I don't know, did the universe just decide that you guys have suffered long enough and I'll finally let you guys be happy together? I hope so, I guess. I mean, I appreciate that they made an exception for him, but I don't know if it makes sense, or I wish they explained more about how he managed to reincarnate. Yeah. And then, besides that, I also want to know what happened to Okrulte, because since Hwal died, Okrulte died as well. So, he died as a Bulgasal, so does he also get to reincarnate as well, or is he not made an exception for? But yeah, so those were all the questions that I had for after finishing the show. I don't think they'll ever be answered, really, because I don't think there's going to be a second season. I think they pretty much told everything that they wanted to. At the end, they just tell us that they have a chance together in the next life because they are both born as humans without having the burden of their past memories. Okay, so end of spoiler section. Okay, so now that I covered all of the questions that I had, I just want to say that overall I enjoyed the show. I like this type of fantasy historical modern fusion. Just like, it kind of reminded me of Goblin or Tale of the Nine-Tailed, which were two other dramas that I watched in the past that had historical elements, but then also modern day, takes place in the modern day, and mythical Korean folklore creatures, and amnesia, and like unreliable narrators, and then dramatic, sad, bittersweet partings. So I knew that this was going to be something that I also enjoyed, and I did enjoy it, but I wish that it didn't drag on as long as it did, or I wish that they utilized the timing more efficiently or better, and that there weren't as many unanswered questions left. But other than that, check out the show if you're interested, if you in this type of genre. Check it out just for like the developing relationship between the two of them, because they made a great couple in the show even without any actual romance. But yeah, let me know if you have watched Bulgasal or if you plan to watch it. And that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!